100%. So Tori, let's talk about like someone who's maybe looking at this who may say, you know what, I've been thinking about getting into the online education space. Let's talk about like some starting steps for them, like where they should start from, right? They're like, what's the first steps? How do I get something like this going? I've been thinking about creating an online course, getting into the online education space, creating these different revenue streams, even alongside my course. Where should I start at right now in 2024?
Yeah, well, I would say first thing is, I always suggest that you kind of have just like with any business, a business plan or online course or online education business kind of strategy. Before you start, creating a whole bunch of stuff and throwing stuff out there and seeing what sticks. Right. Let's understand what is the purpose of this program. So if, for example, if you are trying to generate leads, let's say you have a service offering and you're trying to generate leads, and you are thinking about creating some type of maybe webinar to educate your client or your audience on the issue that they're having and how you're here to provide a solution. That solution is your offering, right? So if ultimately you're trying to sell that service, you want to kind of create a program that educates your client on how to work with you, how to understand the value that you offer, right? So, and then even from there, you may provide the service, but what else can you provide to them? Does the money stop after that one service offering? Or there's some other upsells or other things you can provide? So what is the big vision potential of what this online education program can provide? And then how do we stack it up? And so I we want to start from having a strategy behind it before we actually start creating it, if you're leveraging it as a sales system. And one of the other key steps in the beginning is to really understand your audience. In order for the education to be meaningful, you need to really know what the challenge is that they're having and how you uniquely are poised to meet those challenges through your offerings, in order to get them from point A to point B. So who is your audience? I would say, what's the low hanging fruit? And a lot of times people say, oh, well, I could sell it to everybody. And
everybody generalists.
You hear it, everybody everybody can, but who is most poised? The minute they hear about this, you don't have to arm wrestle them or have to do the most to get them to buy into what you're offering. And then those people who are most poised, why are they most poised? What are they dealing with? What are they going through? What are the things that keeps them up at night? And then based on that, how do you provide a solution? How do you provide a transformation? How do you provide relief? Because once you can demonstrate that, they're like, how much is it? They just gonna throw, they ready to write a check. They ready to swipe that card. So, you really want to understand the audience that you're dealing with, those pain points, and be very clear on the solution that you provide and build your educational program based on that knowledge. And then from there, how do you stack it up into multiple offers?
Got it. So, the first thing, like you said, business plan, strategy, and also the purpose. The purpose. And then from there as well, like you said, being able to pretty much think about, what's the biggest pains or problems or frustrations, of someone or even a business that I potentially can help or serve, right? And of course, what's the solution behind that? And then getting crystal clear as well, specifically on who that ideal client is, right? Instead of saying I could serve any and everybody, which is typically a generalist approach, specialization, right? Specifically, who am I helping and how am I helping them solve the problem? And then from there, getting into talking about actually creating the actual course and the different revenue streams around that pretty much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Gotcha. Makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah.
And, for those that can appeal to multiple audiences, I would say that's great. I said, but let the entry point be very specific. Even if all roads lead to this offer, you know, if doctors are the audience, but at the same time, your offering could also help the businesses of law firms. You know, you're not going to hit them with the same, you're not driving them to the same place.
No.
Yeah. You want the messaging to speak to the doctors.
Right. Exactly.
You want messaging that speaks to the attorneys.
Absolutely.
You know, you want message that speaks to the accountants.
Right.
And even if all roads lead to the offering,
right.
your introduction is very specific to that audience.
Absolutely.
You know, so even if it does appeal to more than one, the messaging has to be very specific and very concise and very targeted.
Absolutely.
And then we can drive them through the system where they all start to, you know, they may receive, you know, the same offerings, you know, but the introduction has to be very customized.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.